The first clue wasn't a lipstick stain or some panting confession in the throes of guilt. It was my own name, spelled wrong, on a thank you card sitting on our kitchen table. To Greg, with all my heart, it said, in her familiar handwriting, except no one calls me Greg. My name's Grant. And unless my wife was sending a deeply heartfelt message to the UPS guy or pinning letters in her sleep, something was off. I stood there staring at it, the way you stare at a tax audit letter or a wet stain on the ceiling. You know exactly what it is, but your brain still begs for another explanation. She wasn't supposed to be home that day. She'd told me she was visiting her mother, a woman I've met maybe 5 times in our 10 years together, each visit about as warm as shaking hands with a corpse. I should have been suspicious then. But I've always been a man who respects space. Give people the rope, and they'll show you if they're weaving a hammock or tying a noose. I had no idea she was already mid-hang. The card was next to an empty wine bottle, her favorite brand, the overpriced rose she reserved only for special nights or bad days. But here it was, on a random Tuesday, cork still on the counter, a lipstick print on the rim of the glass that didn't belong to her usual shade. Small things. Unsettling things. Things that didn't scream infidelity, not yet, but whispered it like a secret that had grown comfortable in the dark. I didn't confront her when she came home the next morning, humming like she'd actually been to her mother's and had no idea the kitchen still reeked of wine and someone else's cologne. I just kissed her on the cheek and said I hoped everything was all right. She smiled, her eyes doing that blink a little too long thing liars always do, and told me it was nice to talk to Mom in person. In person. As if that was some kind of spiritual experience and not a logistical detail she felt obligated to emphasize. I watched her unpack a bag that had clearly been hastily stuffed, 2 mismatched socks, a travel-sized conditioner she never uses, and no charger for her phone. And yet the battery was full. Curious. I became an archaeologist of her daily rituals. I noticed the things that didn't add up. Her gym bag reeked of body spray I don't wear, her phone suddenly always on silent, and one time, she came back from yoga with her wedding ring tucked into her sports bra instead of on her finger. I asked why. She said it gets in the way during downward dog. I nodded, but I remembered a very different kind of downward dog that happened in our early years, and her ring had never bothered her then. Still, I didn't explode. I didn't scream or accuse. I just watched, documented, listened. I knew that if I played it right, she'd tell me everything without meaning to. She started talking about a new coworker, Kevin. No, Kyle. No, Colin. It changed every week, as if she couldn't settle on a consistent lie. He's harmless, she'd say. You'd like him, she'd say. But every time she said his name, she smiled like she was trying not to. And once, when I surprised her by swinging by her office unannounced, her assistant glanced at me like I was a ghost, like she wasn't sure I existed. I left a box of pastries and watched from the car as she tossed them in the break room bin without even opening it. The final nail didn't come in the form of lipstick or whispers. It came when she left her phone on the bathroom counter, locked, of course, but dumb enough to have notifications enabled. One popped up while she was in the shower. Last night was incredible. You're unbelievable. The name? Just a heart emoji. Real original. I didn't touch it. Didn't even scroll. That one message was enough. She might have locked her phone, but she'd left her entire character wide open, and I was done pretending I didn't see it. I didn't pack a bag. I didn't leave the house. No, that would have been mercy. Instead, I started writing 2 letters. One, from me to her lover. Honest, raw, but controlled. No begging, no threats. Just a clear-eyed map of her deception, the dates she claimed to be with family while actually wrapped around his neck, the little lies she told him to get his sympathy, to win his attention. The second letter was forged painstakingly. I mimicked her handwriting, her tone, her sarcasm. I wrote what I knew she would say in private if she thought he'd never read it. How he was just a distraction, how she faked every orgasm, how she laughed at his job and told her friends he smelled like baby powder. It was cruel, but it wasn't a lie because I knew my wife. Knew her too well. And this was the real her. I didn't send the letters yet. Timing was everything. I needed her to fall further, to keep believing she was winning, that her lies were still holding, that I was still blind. I smiled more. Complimented her more. Played the role of the oblivious husband with such perfection that even I almost believed it. But every word she spoke, every fake moan from the shower, every too long phone call from work, just sharpened the knife. I wasn't angry. I was preparing. And soon, when the curtain dropped, her lover would realize the truth, not just that she was cheating, but that he was never anything more than a temporary fix for a woman who couldn't tell the difference between love and leverage. He'd walk away, and she'd be left with exactly what she'd earned: silence. At first, I thought she was just tired. Work had been demanding, she said. Clients had been needy, the traffic was worse, her gym had changed instructors, little irritations that stack up like wet laundry, suffocating but harmless. I cooked more often, tried new recipes she used to love, kept the house cleaner, folded her sweaters the exact way she liked, sleeves tucked, collar up. She thanked me, but it felt like an automated response, a recorded voice telling me my call was important. She kissed me goodnight, but with a mechanical peck that always landed just beside my lips, like I was a relative she was trying not to offend. I told myself not to overthink it. People have phases, and maybe she just needed space to recalibrate. But space started to look more like escape. She stopped watching our favorite shows, claiming she was too tired for screen time, yet would scroll on her phone in bed with the screen angled away from me. Notifications came in like Morse code from a world I wasn't invited to. When I reached for her under the sheets, her hand would gently push mine away with a soft, "Not tonight, babe," that somehow felt like it was said for the 100th time, even though I hadn't tried in weeks. She started talking about her journey, a word she'd never used before. "I just feel like I've lost myself," she said one evening over wine I bought to celebrate her promotion, which she barely acknowledged. "I need to reconnect with who I am outside of being someone's wife." She said it kindly, with a sad smile, as if I were a well-meaning leash around her neck. I didn't argue. I nodded like an idiot and said I supported her, because I did. Because that's what you do when you love someone. You hold the door open even when they're halfway out of it. She started seeing a therapist, or so she claimed. But she never told me the therapist's name, never mentioned the sessions after, and always came back glowing, as if she'd had a spa day rather than emotional work. Her wardrobe changed too, more daring, less practical. She bought heels I'd never seen her wear, lingerie with tags still attached, hidden at the bottom of her sock drawer like a secret she wanted to forget she was hiding. I found a second gym bag in her trunk once, newer than the one she usually used, with a pair of men's socks balled up in the side pocket. She said they were a gift from a gym promo. They were giving out random stuff. I smiled and said, "Lucky you," and she laughed a little too hard. She started going out more, not clubbing, she said, just dinners with friends I apparently didn't know. "You wouldn't be interested," she told me. "It's mostly girl talk." Her phone never left her hand, but somehow it was always dead when I asked to borrow it. I never pushed. I didn't want to become the jealous husband she could use as justification for whatever she was building up to. I still loved her, even as her affection was replaced by polite distance. Her Instagram suddenly went private. "It's a boundary thing," she said. "I need space to express myself without judgment." I wasn't following her anymore, not just online, but in life. She started speaking in phrases that sounded borrowed from self-help books: emotional alignment, reclaiming identity, setting energetic boundaries. She journaled more, wrote in that leather-bound book with a lock on it that I once bought her as a gift. A gift I was now sure she filled with thoughts about a life that no longer included me. She stopped wearing her wedding ring to work. I asked once, jokingly, "Forget something this morning?" She looked at her bare hand and said, "Sometimes it just feels heavy." I told her mine still felt right. She gave me a sad look and turned back to her emails. The house was still full of laughter sometimes, but none of it came from her. She texted more than she talked, smiled more at her phone than at me. Even her scent changed, new perfume, a sample from work, she claimed. Everything about her was evolving, but the evolution didn't have a place for us. And yet, I didn't confront. I still held on to the version of her who danced barefoot in the kitchen, who used to draw hearts in the fogged-up bathroom mirror. I told myself people change, that maybe we'd grow together if I just held steady. But deep down, I knew I was clinging to a woman who had already let go of me. I just hadn't decided to fall yet. It was a Wednesday night, bland and featureless like most had become, except for the chill in the air that made everything feel thinner, more fragile, like the surface of a frozen lake before the first crack. She had left her laptop open on the couch, a rare lapse in her usual security rituals, the ones I pretended not to notice. Clearing browser history, passwords for apps that once sat unlocked, notifications disabled for peace of mind. I wasn't looking for anything. I wasn't snooping. I was cleaning up the living room like I always did, picking up the blanket she dropped, the wine glass she left half full. But when I lifted the laptop to move it, the screen lit up. Her Gmail account, still logged in. A tab open. The subject line, "Last night's magic." I didn't breathe. Didn't blink. Just moved the mouse gently and let the thread load. It wasn't the words that shattered me. It was the tone. The way she wrote to him like she used to write to me. Casual, flirty, tinged with sarcasm and sex. She called him my sweet idiot. A phrase that stung because it was ours, something she used to say after I did something dumb but endearing, like burn toast or forget her favorite wine. The message wasn't pornographic, but it didn't need to be. It was worse. It was intimate. Familiar. She talked about how he actually listens, how she feels seen for the first time in years, and that she's so close to making the leap. My name never appeared. Not once. No acknowledgement of the man whose house she lived in, whose life she borrowed like a costume she never really liked. I sat down beside the laptop and read every word with the stillness of a sniper. There were photos too, casual ones. Her in the mirror wearing the dress she told me was for a friend's wedding. But it hung too tight. The kind of dress you don't wear to celebrate love. You wear it to test the strength of it in someone else. One selfie of her kissing the side of his face, half his features visible, just enough to know he wasn't some fantasy she conjured. He was real, and I recognized him. Not as a friend, not even as an acquaintance. Just a face I'd seen in her stories, blurred in the background at work parties or mentioned briefly in a story about office politics. Oh, he's harmless, she'd said once. A little sad, actually. His fiancée just left him. The irony would have been hilarious if it hadn't felt like a steel rod through my chest. I closed the laptop carefully. Didn't slam it. Didn't scream. I picked up her wine glass, dumped it in the sink, and wiped the counter like nothing had changed. But everything had. Something inside me uncoiled, something reptilian and quiet. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I just felt the heat behind my eyes fade into something colder, cleaner. The kind of cold that sharpens knives. She came home 20 minutes later, humming to herself. I asked how her book club went. She said it was fine, thanked me for cleaning up, kissed the top of my head like I was a child staying up past his bedtime. I said nothing, just smiled and told her I'd be up late finishing a project. She said not to stay up too long. Don't want to burn yourself out, babe. I watched her walk away and realized I wasn't even watching her anymore. I was watching a stranger who had perfected the act of being familiar. That night, I lay awake in bed beside her, watching the red digits of the alarm clock tick forward like a countdown. Her breathing was steady, peaceful, and I wondered how she could sleep so easily with so many lies stitched into the sheets. I didn't touch her, didn't move, just stared at the ceiling and thought about all the times I'd defended her to myself. All the warnings I'd dismissed, the intuition I'd drowned in logic. The puzzle was complete now, and the picture it showed was unforgivable. I wasn't hurt anymore. I was activated, calculating, preparing, not for a confrontation. No, that would be a gift she didn't deserve. I was planning an execution, not of her body, but of her world. Quietly, methodically, I began listing everything I knew, everyone involved, every angle. I would not scream. I would not beg. I would not even speak. But she would feel me, not as a husband, not as a victim, but as a force, because the game had changed. She didn't know it yet, but I had already stopped loving her and started hunting her. I became a ghost in my own life, but not the kind that haunts out of sorrow. I was the kind that watches, that learns, that waits for the right moment to strike without ever making a sound. She had no idea I'd seen the emails, no idea I'd already started pulling the thread of her carefully constructed fiction. The first move was simple. I set up a Google Voice number and texted her from it as Amanda, a fake friend from her yoga group. One I knew she never actually met in person because the class was always just a few quiet ladies. I told her about a new retreat coming up next weekend, same time as her next planned girls' trip. She replied within minutes, "Sorry, can't make it. Already booked with my mom for a spiritual cleanse weekend." Lie number 1. I saved the message. I didn't ask her about it. Instead, I logged into our shared credit card account. She rarely checked it, always too busy managing mental clutter, as she'd put it, and I traced every transaction from the last 3 months. A repeating charge stood out. A boutique hotel downtown, cozy and romantic, the kind of place with no business hosting a woman who claims to spend her weekends in forest cabins with incense and prayer beads. I cross-referenced the dates with her messages, suspiciously consistent, no service in the mountains texts and going to bed early, phones on airplane mode nights. She'd never once mentioned staying in the city. I drove to the hotel during one of her next retreat weekends and waited across the street like I was part of the pavement. She didn't see me when she got out of the rideshare. She didn't see me when she walked in holding hands with a man in a leather jacket and a stupid grin. She didn't see me because she wasn't looking for anything real. She was too deep in the lie to imagine she could be watched by someone who already knew. I took photos, not out of obsession, but for documentation, proof, leverage, insurance. I still didn't confront her. Instead, I tested her. I casually mentioned that my friend Dave, fictional, worked a block away from that hotel and swore he saw someone who looked like her. She blinked for a beat too long, then smiled and said, "Oh, must have been my doppelganger," with a laugh that didn't quite reach her eyes. Lie number 2. I nodded, said nothing more. The next day, I sent flowers to her office from an anonymous admirer. "To the most beautiful woman in the building," the card read. I didn't expect a reaction, but I wanted confirmation. Hours later, she texted me from her lunch break, saying she was swamped at work. But the bouquet had already been signed for. Not by her. By the front desk receptionist, meaning she wasn't there. Meaning she hadn't been at work all day. I asked her how work was when she got home. She said exhausting, then went on a 5-minute rant about a client who didn't exist. Lie number 3. I smiled. Let her talk. I cooked dinner. We watched a show. She fell asleep on the couch with her head on my shoulder. The irony nearly choked me. Next, I went after her best friend, Lexi, the one she always used as cover for last-minute getaways and spa days. I created a new Instagram account, used stock photos, built it over a week with posts about fitness and meditation, followed a few mutual accounts. Then I followed Lexi. She accepted. Within 2 days, I knew more about my wife's affair than I could have ever guessed. Lexi had posted pictures of them at a rooftop bar the same weekend. She told me they were deep in nature with no Wi-Fi. In one video, my wife danced in the background, her arm around the same man from the hotel, laughing in a way she hadn't laughed with me in over a year. No captions. No tags. But her face said everything. I downloaded it all. Every post. Every image. I built a folder titled Exit Strategy. Still, I said nothing. I wanted to know how far it went. I set calendar reminders to see if her alibis would overlap with any holidays or events. I tracked her lies like a data analyst tracking a virus outbreak, methodical, unemotional, precise. I started asking questions with no answers just to watch her squirm. "Hey, what was that book your mom recommended? I was going to look it up." She blinked, smiled, said, "Oh, I'll have to check," then changed the subject. Lie number 4. I started taking mental notes of every new phrase she used, therapy language designed to justify distance, emotional bandwidth, individual identity, nurturing my inner self. All of it was insulation, layers of noise to hide the obvious truth that she was phasing me out like a canceled subscription. And I let her think it was working. Because the moment she felt safe, the moment she let her guard down, that's when I'd strike. Not with rage. Not with drama. But with facts, with truth, with evidence so undeniable that even she wouldn't bother to lie. She still thought I was the same man sleeping beside her, clueless, devoted, gullible. She didn't realize I'd stopped being her husband weeks ago. I was something else now. Something colder. Something patient. Something she'd never see coming. It happened at her company's annual fundraiser gala, an elegant affair held in a rented rooftop garden downtown, filled with polished executives and forced laughter, where waiters weaved through tables with trays of champagne and forced smiles. I had never attended one before. She always insisted it was just a work thing and you'd be bored, babe. This year, I insisted. I wore a tailored black suit, the one she bought for me 3 anniversaries ago, back when love still had a pulse. I smiled at the valet, tipped the coat attendant, and walked into the lion's den with the calm of a man who already knew how the hunt would end. She didn't notice me at first. She was standing near the balcony, laughing with a colleague, him. The man from the photos, the emails, the hotel. She was radiant, not because of the dress or makeup, but because she believed she was untouchable. I approached without a sound, took a glass of champagne from a passing tray, and stepped beside her. She turned, her face lighting up, then stuttering into confusion. "You came," she said, with a smile that struggled to hold shape. "Of course," I replied. "Wouldn't miss a chance to support the woman I love." Her lover shifted awkwardly, offered his hand. "Hey man, I've heard a lot about you." I shook it, firm and slow. "Likewise." Her eyes darted between us, reading the silence like a storm on the horizon. I sipped my drink. "Can we talk privately?" I asked her, And she nodded, too quickly. I led her to one of the event tents, quiet, lit only by soft string lights. She tried to speak, but I raised a hand. Then, from my jacket pocket, I pulled a small remote, pressed a button, and a nearby screen flickered to life. A simple video, her, at the boutique hotel, laughing in the lobby, wrapping her arms around him, kissing him like she used to kiss me before our souls began sleeping in separate beds. She gasped, a hand flying to her mouth, not in shame, but in panic. "It's not what it looks like," she said instantly, as if rehearsed. I cut her off with silence, the kind that speaks louder than a scream. She stumbled forward. "It was a mistake. It didn't mean anything. I was going through so much, and you've been so distant." Her voice cracked, the tremble in her throat betraying the cracks in her story. "You never paid attention. You were always working, always focused on something else." I tilted my head. "So you decided to seek attention in someone else's bed?" She looked wounded, like my calmness was more painful than fury. "It wasn't like that," she pleaded. He made me feel alive again." She laughed nervously, trying to regain footing. "You have to admit, we've been off for a while. You can't be surprised. I mean, maybe if you'd shown more interest in." I raised my hand again. "Don't finish that sentence," I said, voice steady. "Don't mistake my silence for consent or my patience for weakness." Her face twisted, venom slipping in. "You've always been so cold. So damn calculating. You think this is all my fault? You think I didn't try?" And there it was, the shift. The moment they stop apologizing and start attacking. "You were boring," she spat. "Predictable. Like a damn spreadsheet in human form." She laughed, loud and hollow. "Honestly, you should be thanking me for making your life interesting." I stepped closer, looking her dead in the eyes. "You think this is about boredom? About sex? This is about betrayal. About watching the person I trusted lie to my face with the confidence of a con artist. About you making me the villain in a story where you're the one destroying everything." Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Just silence. Beautiful, terrified silence. "He doesn't know the things you said about him behind his back," I continued. "But he will." Her eyes widened. "What?" I smiled faintly. "You told him you loved him. But you also told Lexi he's pathetic. That you're just riding it out until he gets too clingy." Her breath caught. "You went through my messages," she whispered. "I went through the reality you tried so hard to hide. And I documented everything. Every lie. Every touch. Every excuse." Her hand trembled slightly. You wouldn't do that to me." I took a slow step back. "I already have." She blinked, like she was waking up in the middle of a nightmare that wouldn't dissolve. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, now soft, small. "Because you thought I wouldn't," I said. "You thought you were smarter. Slippery. Irreplaceable. You thought I'd never find out. And if I did, you thought I'd yell. Cry. Beg. But I don't beg. I dismantle." Her voice cracked. "Please don't do this here. Not tonight." I glanced around at the white light strung across the tent, the soft jazz music drifting from the rooftop, the guests mingling just feet away. "You're right," I said calmly. "Tonight's not the night." She let out a breath of relief. "But tomorrow," I added, "tomorrow's going to be unforgettable." And I turned back toward the gala, toward the man who still thought he'd won, toward the people who would soon know everything, leaving her standing in the dim light, alone with a silence thick enough to drown in. She showed up at the house the next evening like a storm that had forgotten its direction. Wet hair, smeared mascara, keys jingling in one shaky hand while she pounded the door with the other like it owed her an apology. I didn't open it at first. I let her knock until the rhythm turned erratic, desperate, until her voice cracked with frustration on the other side. "Open the damn door, Grant," she screamed, like she still had rights here, like she hadn't burned them all down with the heat of her betrayal. When I finally opened it, I didn't say a word. I just stood there, letting her see exactly what she'd created, a man who no longer needed her presence to feel complete. She pushed her way past me, uninvited, like she used to do when she thought the world belonged to her whims. She dropped her purse on the floor and spun to face me. "So what? You're just going to humiliate me?" she snapped. "At my work event? You think that makes you some kind of man?" I said nothing. Her eyes searched my face for some reaction, some spark she could grab and twist, but there was nothing left for her to work with. "Say something," she barked, voice rising. "You think this is easy for me? You think I planned this?" Still, I stayed silent. She laughed bitterly. Of course you just stand there. That's all you ever did, stand around, exist." She threw her arms wide. "You smothered me, Grant. You don't talk. You don't feel anything. You just hover and pretend that's love. I tilted my head. No, I said. That was restraint. She blinked. The word hit her like a slap, not for its volume, but for its clarity. I should have left you years ago, she spat. You never made me feel like a woman. I had to beg you to notice me. I stepped forward slightly. You weren't looking to be noticed, I replied. You were looking to be worshipped. There's a difference. Her face contorted. You're unbelievable. After everything, you're going to sit there and act like this is all my fault. I let the silence stretch again. It's not your fault you're broken, I finally said. It's your fault you knew and still aimed to break others. Her lip trembled, but her voice came out venomous. Maybe if you were a real man, I wouldn't have needed someone else. I met her gaze, still calm. If you needed a man who'd lie to himself just to make you feel valuable, you should have looked in the mirror. She turned away, arms crossed, pacing now, unraveling in real time. You're heartless, she muttered. Cold. A machine. I walked past her and sat down, leaning back in the chair like I was watching a documentary I'd already seen, interesting only in how far the subject would fall. You confuse boundaries with cruelty, I said. I just finally stopped feeding the illusion. She spun to face me, furious now, wild. I gave you my best years, she shouted. I sacrificed for you. My laugh was soft, but it sliced through the room. You sacrificed nothing, I said. You invested until you found a better return. She clenched her fists. God, you are so damn condescending. Do you think you're better than me? I didn't move. I know I'm better than the person you became. She looked like she might lunge, like every nerve in her body was firing at once with nowhere to discharge. You think this is victory? She hissed. You think watching me fall apart is strength? I stood up slowly, towering over her without raising my voice. No, I said. Strength is watching someone dig their own grave and not handing them a shovel. She backed up slightly, like she finally saw it, saw the absence of fear in me, the absence of need. That terrified her more than anything else ever could. I made mistakes, she said, tone suddenly softer, shaking. People do. That doesn't mean I don't love you. I walked to the door, opened it. You love what I gave you, stability, safety, silence. But you never loved me. Her voice cracked again, small now. So that's it, she whispered. You're just done. I didn't even blink. You ended it. I'm just honoring your decision. She stared at me, her mouth parting, wanting to say something that might undo the spiral. But there was nothing left for her to say. Nothing that could rewind what she'd undone. She turned slowly, picked up her bag, and walked out the door without another word, her steps uneven, her breath shallow. I closed it behind her without slamming it. There was no need. The echo of her own collapse would ring louder than anything I could say. And I didn't look back. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally did. She thought I would drag this out. She thought I would spiral, rage, beg, maybe even chase after her in some pathetic display of wounded ego. But I wasn't chasing. I was documenting. And when she walked out of that house the last time, what she didn't realize was that every step she took was already being cataloged and weaponized. I spent the next 3 days building a timeline, not emotional, not dramatic, just cold facts with dates, screenshots, call logs, receipts, location pings from our shared car app, audio recordings from conversations where she contradicted herself, and emails from her affair partner that I forwarded to a separate folder labeled Evidence Core. I bought a hard drive and backed up everything twice, one for the lawyer, one for myself. Then I changed every password she had access to: bank accounts, investment portfolios, online billing, insurance, mortgage apps. She wouldn't even realize until she tried to log in and saw the access denied message flash like a digital slap to the face. I had already pulled half our liquid assets into a new solo account, perfectly legal since it was joint, and I left a trail. I filed for divorce quietly, without a word to her. My lawyer, who I hired 2 weeks ago once I saw the hotel footage, filed under grounds of adultery, which in our state gave me the advantage. I submitted every piece of evidence, carefully ordered, legally admissible, no drama, just facts that would strip her of any leverage. I didn't want alimony. I wanted surgical destruction. She still had the car, my car, actually. Title still in my name. So I remotely disabled the engine via the app, had it towed to the dealer the next morning, and sold it. She'd left her spare key on the kitchen counter. I left the proceeds in the same account she could no longer access. Credit cards? Canceled. Subscription she mooched off? Disconnected. I wasn't cruel. I was efficient. Every shared utility, every monthly bill, every streaming service transferred, closed, or rerouted. Her number was removed from the family phone plan. No warning, no message. Just silence. It took her 4 days to notice. On day 5, I sent one group email to her parents, her sister, and our mutual friends. No rants. Just a single zip file labeled, "In case you're wondering why this marriage is over," with every relevant document included, timestamped, verifiable, and indisputable. No narrative. Just the raw data of betrayal. I signed it with a single sentence: "I will not be speaking about this further." And I never did. The ripple effect was glorious. Her father, a proud, stoic man who once toasted our wedding with tears in his eyes, replied within the hour with 4 words: "You deserved better, son." Her sister called me crying. Said she suspected something but never had proof. Now she did. I didn't ask for sympathy. I just nodded and thanked them. Quietly. Respectfully. She called me 32 times that day. I answered none. She showed up at my office. Big mistake. I had security remove her. I told the front desk she was not to be allowed in the building. HR was already aware, because, days before, I'd sent them an anonymous tip regarding a certain inappropriate relationship she'd been cultivating with a fellow executive at her company. Her lover, the man she'd been trading moans and motivational quotes with, was technically her subordinate. Their HR department takes things like that very seriously, especially when the relationship is documented with company email and public appearances. I never said a word. Just submitted the proof anonymously from a burner email account with a detailed timeline. They would handle the rest. She still didn't know I was the source. She still thought she had options. She didn't. The apartment she tried to lease with her new lover? Tanked. I had discovered it through one of her credit inquiries. A few well-placed calls to the complex's board, posing as a concerned spouse involved in a contested divorce, ensured they reconsidered the application. They always do when legal complications and potential court subpoenas are involved. Meanwhile, I'd already had the locks at our home changed and a new alarm system installed. Every trace of her was removed. Photos boxed. Clothes packed. All stored in a unit under her maiden name and paid for 6 months in advance, along with the key and address mailed to her via courier. No note. Just logistics. I wasn't going to throw her life in the trash. I wanted her to know I'd handled it better than she ever could. I even had the decency to cancel our couple's therapy appointment. She never showed up to most of them anyway. And the cherry on top? I reached out to her new boyfriend. Sent him a private message with no emotion, no threats. Just 10 attachments, texts, voicemails, photos, and a transcript of a conversation she had with Lexi about how he was just a phase until she could rebuild her confidence. I wished him luck. That was it. Last I heard, he blocked her. I imagine she's sitting somewhere right now, surrounded by pieces of a life she thought she had control over, wondering how everything fell apart so fast. But it didn't fall apart. It was dismantled, piece by piece, by the man she thought was too passive to ever fight back, by the man she underestimated. And now, the only person she can lie to is herself. It all came to a head at her nephew's birthday party. A bright, cheerful backyard gathering filled with balloons, folding chairs, and relatives she used to command with the ease of a queen holding court. She had no idea the walls were already closing in, that every smile aimed at her that day was laced with quiet, damning knowledge. I arrived 10 minutes after her, dressed sharp but simple, nodding politely as I walked through the gate with the calm of a man who'd already won. Her parents were there. So was her sister, her cousin, the very best friend she used to text about how distant I've become. Her lover wasn't there. Not anymore. A shame, really. He'd been invited. But I'd made sure, just a week earlier, to give him the same file I'd sent to her family, a meticulously organized digital archive of her betrayal, with a note that said, "You deserve to know who you're making plans with." He never replied. Just vanished. Ghosted her the way she used to ghost reality. She spotted me across the yard and froze for a moment. Only a second, but it was enough. Her smile faltered, then reset like a glitching avatar. She waved, trying to play it off, but I didn't wave back. I just walked past her and gave her father a firm handshake. The man pulled me into a hug. A hug. She saw it, and the twitch in her jaw was beautiful. I made the rounds. Greeted every guest. Every one of them welcomed me with warmth. Even her own mother, once cold and distant, put a hand on my shoulder and whispered, "You didn't deserve any of that. We're so sorry." I nodded. Didn't even need to pretend to be humble. Because I wasn't here to make a scene. I was here to let her realize the scene had already happened, and she was the villain. When it came time to cut the cake, everyone gathered around. She stood beside her sister, trying to joke, trying to command attention. But no one laughed. No one leaned in. They just smiled politely, as if they were waiting for her to say something useful, something redeeming. And then her sister, the one she thought was loyal beyond reason, turned to her and said, "You should probably apologize, you know. People know." The silence was suffocating. Her hand, which had been resting casually on her wine glass, suddenly clenched. "What are you talking about?" she asked, too light, too high-pitched. "Apologize for what?" Her sister didn't blink. "For wrecking the only real man you'll ever have." Her laugh came out sharp, forced. "Okay, what? Are we all doing the judgment thing now? Is this some weird group therapy?" No one replied. Even the kids noticed the tension and started drifting away. Her mother turned and walked into the house. Her father shook his head and muttered, "You used to be better than this." And that's when she snapped. "Oh, come on," she said, spinning, voice rising. "Like none of you have ever made a mistake? Like I'm the first one to be unhappy in a marriage." She gestured toward me, her voice now trembling. He was boring. He never talked. I was dying inside. I needed something, someone, just to feel alive again. I didn't move, didn't blink, just watched. And that, more than anything, unraveled her. "You think he's perfect?" she barked, eyes darting between them all. "You're all eating out of his hand like he's some kind of saint. He's not. He's manipulative, he's cold, he's... But her words were starting to stutter. She looked around, and no one was defending her. No one was nodding. Not even Lexi. Lexi, the friend she used to confide in, just stood there, arms crossed, stone-faced. And when their eyes met, Lexi said flatly, "You lied to all of us. Used us to cover your mess. You don't deserve to be the victim here." That was it. That was the moment. Her shoulders sank. Her mouth opened, then closed. She looked like she might scream, but instead, her eyes welled up and her voice came out in a whisper. I didn't mean for it to go this far. But no one reached for her. No one comforted her. I stood at the back of the crowd, silent, immovable, arms crossed, and watched her crumble in real time. Her gaze landed on me, pleading now, not with words, but with something deeper, some shattered part of her that finally realized she wasn't coming back from this. That the story she'd written, the one where she moved on clean, where I faded quietly, and she got the applause, had burned mid-chapter. And she was standing in the ashes, barefoot, alone. She took a step toward me. "Grant," she started. But I didn't flinch. I didn't speak. I didn't offer her the dignity of even a nod. I just kept watching, letting the silence fill the space where a future once lived. Her voice broke on the second syllable. She turned away, trembling, retreating back into the house with the weight of every consequence finally pressing down on her spine. And I stood there as the door shut behind her, the tension thick, the judgment permanent. Justice, I've found, doesn't need to shout. Sometimes it just watches. It happened at her company's winter networking event, an upscale evening meant to impress donors and clients, with low lights, smooth jazz, and champagne bubbling like nothing could go wrong. I wasn't supposed to be there. She hadn't invited me. But her boss had. After the anonymous email I sent reached HR and opened a quiet investigation into workplace misconduct. I arrived in silence, dressed sharper than I'd ever been, and scanned the crowd until I spotted her near the bar, laughing too loud, drinking too fast, surrounded by faces that no longer saw her the same. Then I saw him, her sweet escape, the same man she swore meant nothing, standing awkwardly nearby, clearly uncomfortable under the weight of eyes that had started to whisper. I stepped up just as her parents arrived behind me, people she hadn't looked in the eye since the evidence dropped into their inbox. Her mother said nothing. Her father looked like he was barely holding back the disappointment chewing through his ribs. She saw me, and her smile died mid-sentence. "What are you doing here?" she snapped, her voice a little too loud, a little too panicked. "Crashing professional events now?" "No," I said calmly. "Just here to see if your personal growth journey includes lying to your entire company." A few heads turned. Her face flushed. "This isn't the time or place," she hissed. "That's funny," I replied. "Because it's exactly where you started this mess, isn't it? Right here, at work, where you were supposed to be earning trust, not trading it for hotel room keycards." Her lover stiffened beside her, and the color drained from his face. "You don't know what you're talking about," she said, eyes darting, voice trembling now. "You don't know what it's like to feel invisible in your own marriage." I laughed, loud, bitter. "Invisible? You think I didn't see you? I saw everything. I saw you spinning lies with that same mouth you used to say you loved me. I saw you turn our home into a stage, rehearsing your betrayal like it was a role you were born to play. And I kept quiet, not because I was weak, but because I was watching the whole performance unfold." A woman near the bar gasped. Someone started recording on their phone. The air thickened with anticipation. She stepped forward, finger pointed like a dagger. "You think you're some victim here? You're cold, Grant. You're emotionless. I had to look elsewhere because you never gave me anything." "No," I snapped, finally raising my voice. "You looked elsewhere because you're a coward. Because commitment scared you the moment it stopped being convenient. Because deep down, you know you'll never be satisfied with anything real. You need chaos. You need attention. And when you don't get it, you burn everything to the ground and cry about the ashes." Her hands trembled. "You don't understand what I've been through." "You mean the spa weekends? The silent treatments? The secret emails to a man who had to pretend he wasn't embarrassed to be seen with you in public?" The room gasped. She turned to her lover, pleading, Tell them we're not just some fling." But he took a step back. I didn't know she was still living with him," he muttered. "She said they were separated. She lied to me, too." Her jaw dropped. "What? No, I didn't. I was going to—" Her voice cracked. I turned to him. "You know what she told her friends about you? That you were a rebound with a nice car. A distraction. Temporary." He looked at her like she was poison. "You used me?" he asked, his voice quiet but broken. "You really used me?" Her lip quivered. "No. I mean, yes, but not like that. I didn't mean to." "Oh, you meant every bit of it," I said, stepping closer, not to hurt her, but to ensure every word landed like a brick to the chest. "You meant to lie. You meant to cheat. You meant to make me feel like the boring husband while you played reckless queen in a kingdom of stolen loyalty. But guess what, sweetheart? You're not the victim here. You're the one who sold everything we built for the cheap thrill of being wanted by someone who doesn't even want you anymore." Her mother turned away, tears in her eyes. Her father looked at her like he didn't recognize her. People were whispering, backing up, shaking their heads. Her co-workers, her boss, the ones she used to impress, now watching as she unraveled in the middle of her own stage. She screamed then, high and ugly, "You're destroying my life." "No," I said coldly. "You did that all by yourself. I'm just making sure everyone sees what's left." She fell to her knees, actually dropped, mascara smearing down her cheeks, gasping like someone drowning in air. And I stood over her, unmoved, untouchable. Her friends didn't help her. Her lover disappeared into the crowd. Her family walked away in silence. I straightened my jacket, turned, and walked out, slow, deliberate, leaving behind the ruins of a woman who finally learned that you don't get to light the match and cry about the fire. 6 months later, she was a ghost in her own life, haunting the spaces that used to adore her. Her job at the firm didn't last more than 2 weeks after the gala. HR moved fast once the whispers became official complaints. She was escorted out by security in front of the same co-workers she used to command with coffee in one hand and sarcasm in the other. Her inbox was wiped clean, her name stripped from the company website, like she'd never existed. Friends disappeared next, not in a dramatic, flaming exit kind of way, but with cold, quiet unfollowings and unanswered texts. Even Lexi blocked her. Her social media became a wasteland of unliked posts and photos from a past no one wanted to remember. She made one desperate attempt to start over with the affair partner, moved in with him, begged for a fresh start, told herself it was real now that the chaos had cleared. But it didn't last. He left in the middle of the night 3 weeks later, a note on the counter that said, "You scare me." That was it. No closure. No goodbye. Just fear and distance. She tried to spin it, tried to post motivational quotes online about rebirth and growth, but no one was listening anymore. No audience. No applause. Just silence. She moved to a smaller town an hour outside the city, rented a one-bedroom apartment above a laundromat, and took a job managing inventory at a boutique where no one asked questions. Her days were filled with scanning barcodes and pretending she wasn't checking her phone every 2 minutes, hoping someone, anyone, would still see her. That someone was me. I know, because she called. First once. Then again. Then it became a pattern, late-night voicemails with her whispering my name like a prayer into the static. Grant, I still love you. I messed up. I lost myself, but I found clarity now. I'm different. Please. She wrote me letters too. Pages and pages of confessions, self-pity, promises. She said I was the best thing that ever happened to her. That she sees it now. That she'd give anything to fix it. One day, she showed up at my door. Hair disheveled, eyes puffy, no makeup, the designer sheen stripped off her like a snake shedding its skin. She looked smaller somehow. Not physically, spiritually. Like the world had shrunk around her, and she didn't know how to breathe in it anymore. She stood in front of me, shaking. Please, she said, voice cracking, I don't care what you've heard. I don't care who knows. I just want you. I stared at her in silence. No anger. No cruelty. Just finality. She searched my face for something recognition, maybe. A spark of the man who once gave her everything. But that man was gone. She stepped forward like she might touch me. I stepped back. You don't get to want me now, I said. Not after you dismantled me to feel alive for 5 minutes. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I thought you'd understand. You thought I'd be waiting, I said. But you didn't just betray a marriage. You killed the man who loved you. And I buried him the day you smiled while lying to my face. She covered her mouth, shaking, sobbing now, the kind of weeping that has no dignity left. I watched her for a moment. Then I stepped forward, looked her in the eye, and said the last thing I'd ever say to her, strange. I don't even remember your name anymore. I shut the door before she could fall apart any further. And I didn't look through the peephole. I didn't check if she left. Because I didn't need to. The story was already over. To everyone listening, thank you for making it this far. I know this one hit hard. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from, and tell me, did you enjoy watching her fall apart?